Welcome to the third part of the Unsolved Mysteries Iceberg, where we explore some of the most fascinating and dark unsolved mysteries. On this iceberg, we delve into unsolved mysteries including true crime, myths and legends, strange events, cryptids, internet mysteries, and more. Kaspar Hauser. The Kaspar Hauser case is perhaps one of the quintessential unsolved mysteries of all time, because very few facts are known with any certainty. On May 26, 1828, a teenage boy appeared in the streets of Nuremberg. He could barely speak and walked with difficulty. He carried a letter addressed to an army officer by the name of Captain von Wessening. The letter claimed that the boy, named Kaspar Hauser, was given into the care of the sender as an infant and had been raised in total isolation from society. According to the letter, Hauser had never left the house and had been taught only the basics of reading and writing. Upon his discovery, Kaspar Hauser was taken to the authorities, who were perplexed by his story and condition. Initially, he could say only a few sentences, one of which was declaring that he wanted to be a cavalryman like his father. Hauser's inability to provide any concrete information about his past or identity led to widespread public fascination and speculation. Authorities and curious citizens attempted to uncover his origins. Hauser claimed that he had spent his life confined in a small room and had minimal human contact, subsisting solely on bread and water. He demonstrated a peculiar innocence and ignorance of the world, further complicating his story's believability. Kaspar Hauser was placed under the care of various guardians throughout his time in Nuremberg. He was initially housed with a jailer, then moved to the home of a teacher, and finally to that of Lord Stanhope, a British lord who had become fascinated by the Hauser case. Throughout these transitions, Hauser learned to speak, read, and write more fluently, and began to adapt to society. However, his story attracted skeptics and believers alike, leading to a division in public opinion and academic circles. Hauser's life was marked by several mysterious incidents that further deepened the mystery. These incidents mostly centered around mysterious attacks by unknown assailants. The first attack occurred in 1829 when he was found bleeding from a cut on his forehead. Hauser claimed that a hooded man had attacked him, warning Hauser that he would never reveal his true origins. Another incident in 1830 involved Hauser likely accidentally injuring himself with a pistol, which he claimed was also an assassination attempt. These incidents led to increased scrutiny and doubt regarding his credibility. The mystery of Kaspar Hauser took a dark turn on December 14, 1833, when he was found with a severe stab wound in the Ansbach court garden. He claimed that he was lured to the garden by a stranger who attacked him. Hauser died 3 days later, on December 17, 1833. The circumstances of his death fueled further speculation and controversy, with theories ranging from self-inflicted wounds to assassination by those who feared he might reveal a scandalous origin. Also, just a brief aside here, if you already believe you've been targeted for assassination twice, I question the wisdom of following strangers to unfamiliar places. Over the years, numerous theories have emerged regarding Kaspar Hauser's origins and identity. One popular theory suggests that he was of princely birth, possibly the hereditary Prince of Baden, switched at birth with a dying infant to alter the line of succession. This theory posits that Hauser was kept hidden to prevent him from claiming his rightful place. Other theories propose that Hauser was a fraud, seeking attention and sympathy, or that he was mentally ill, creating a fantastical story about his upbringing. Skeptics point to inconsistencies in his accounts and the lack of physical evidence to support his claims of prolonged confinement. In my view, Kaspar Hauser is perhaps the individual who most exemplifies this unsolved mysteries iceberg. Given that there are almost no known variables for Kaspar Hauser, every theory degenerates into a multivariate analysis rabbit hole. This multivariate rabbit hole generates near infinite plausible outcomes, hence why the story of Casper Hauser is still popular, or at least quite well known, 2 centuries later. Lisa Lynn Bishop. Lisa Lynn Bishop, a young woman from Atlanta, Georgia, vanished without a trace in 1988. She had plans to travel to Haiti aboard a freighter named the Frieden, under the command of a mysterious German man known as Florian Meyer-Borch. Lisa was an aspiring journalist and reportedly took this trip to gather material for a story. However, she never returned, and no one has heard from her since. The Frieden, the vessel Lisa was supposed to travel on, adds a layer of mystery to her disappearance. There are conflicting reports about the ship's journey, its condition, and even whether that is the correct name of the ship. The Frieden departed from Miami on December 17, 1988, with a crew consisting of Florian, the captain, Lisa, and 7 Haitians, of whom nothing has been reported on. This would be the last time Lisa, the ship, the captain, or the crew were seen. Some sources claim that the Frieden was seen in Miami or around the Caribbean after Lisa's disappearance, but these sightings have not been conclusively verified. Florian, the captain with whom Lisa was last known to be with, is another figure shrouded in ambiguity. Efforts to locate and question him following Lisa's disappearance yielded little information. His connection to the case is a critical element, yet his whereabouts or involvement remains largely unexplained. The last confirmed sighting of Florian Meyer-Borch was on Grand Cayman circa early 1989. However, Lisa was not spotted with him, heightening concerns. The investigation into Lisa's disappearance faced numerous challenges. The international nature of her travel plan, involving a trip to Haiti, complicated jurisdictional and investigative efforts. Several theories have been proposed regarding Lisa's fate. Some speculate that she may have fallen victim to foul play, possibly related to the individual she was with, or the places she intended to visit. Others suggest the possibility of an accident, a deliberate disappearance, or even sinister allegations of human trafficking. However, without concrete evidence, these theories remain speculative. While researching this case, one thing struck me. Everyone simply accepts that Lisa got on a boat in Miami. However, as far as I can tell, there are no witnesses who actually saw her get on the boat. My own hypothesis is that she may never have even made it to the boat, and that she may have been slain on the trip to the supposed boat. The Moraga Case. The Moraga Case, also known as the Monster with 21 Faces, is a notorious and unresolved criminal investigation involving a series of threats and extortion attempts against Japanese confectionery companies, primarily Ezaki Glico and Morinaga, during the 1980s. This case is infamous for its bizarre communications from the perpetrators, the extensive manhunt that followed, and its eventual cold case status, with no arrests made. The ordeal began on March 18, 1984, when Katsuhisa Ezaki, the president of Glico, was kidnapped from his home by several masked individuals. The kidnappers demanded a ransom of 1 billion yen and 100 kilograms of gold bullion for his release. Ezaki managed to escape 3 days later without the ransom being paid. This event marked the beginning of a bizarre and extensive criminal campaign against Glico, and later, other Japanese confectionery companies. Following Ezaki's escape, the perpetrators shifted their tactics from kidnapping to a campaign of harassment and intimidation. They started by setting fires at Glico facilities and vandalizing company vehicles. The situation escalated when the group, calling themselves the Monster with 21 Faces, began sending letters to the media and the companies themselves. These letters contained threats to poison Glico products and demands for money to cease their campaign. Despite extensive police efforts, the perpetrators managed to evade capture, even after distributing tainted glyco products, which led to a massive product recall and a significant drop in sales. The public was terrified, and Glico's reputation suffered enormously in light of the tainted products. After months of targeting Glico, the group shifted its focus to another confectionery giant, Morinaga, in October 1984. The threats against Morinaga were similar, including the promise to distribute poisoned candies. The monster with 21 faces sent letters to media outlets claiming that they had laced Morinaga products with cyanide. This prompted another widespread recall and further public panic. The Japanese police launched a massive investigation to capture the group behind these threats. The police were criticized for their handling of the case, particularly their perceived inability to protect the companies and the public from the threats. The last communication from the monster with 21 faces came in August 1985, in which they declared that they were ceasing their criminal activities and going into retirement. After this message, no further threats were made, and the case gradually faded from the public eye. However, the police continued their investigation, albeit without significant progress. A notable and sad event in the investigation was the ending of Shoji Yamamoto, a police superintendent in charge of the case, in August 1985, by his own hand. Yamamoto used self-immolation as this self-ending technique, drawing attention to the pressure the investigators had been placed under. The Glico Morinaga case remains one of Japan's most infamous unsolved crimes. Despite extensive investigations, the identity of the monster with 21 faces remains unknown, and no individuals have been arrested in connection with the crimes. In terms of suspects, no individual suspects have ever been named who haven't subsequently been cleared by the police. The police suspect that the perpetrators were a Yakuza group, or political extremists, or perhaps religious fanatics, literally the usual suspects. Peter Berzika. Peter Berzika, reportedly a law student and member of the Franciscan Order of Monks before joining the Ustasha, participated in a horrific competition on the night of August 29, 1942, inside the Jasenovac concentration camp. The contest was to determine who could end as many prisoners by blade in a single night. According to witnesses and survivors, Berzika won this competition, purportedly ending over 1,300 innocent people. The accounts of Berzika's actions come from testimonies of survivors and are documented in various historical records and post-war testimonies. These sources describe him using a specially sharpened knife, engaging in the activity with a zeal that shocked even his fellow perpetrators. Also, by way of background, Jasenovac concentration camp, known for its brutality, was the largest extermination site in the independent state of Croatia. Also, I can feel you thinking, why is this one on this iceberg chart? What's the mystery? Peter Berzika was never brought to justice and may have lived out the rest of his life as a free man. Las Cruces bowling alley slayings. The Las Cruces bowling alley slayings remains one of the most chilling unsolved crimes in the history of New Mexico. On February 10, 1990, in the city of Las Cruces, a brutal attack unfolded at the Las Cruces Bowl, leaving the community in shock and sparking a decades-long investigation that has yet to yield a resolution. On the morning of February 10th, two unidentified gunmen entered the Las Cruces Bowl shortly before the business opened to the public. Inside, they found 7 people, including a number of children who were there due to their parents' employment. The intruders proceeded to rob the establishment, obtaining an undisclosed amount of money. However, the crime escalated dramatically when the robbers decided to end each of the 7 victims before fleeing the scene. The brutality and apparent senselessness of the act stunned law enforcement and the public alike. 4 of the victims sadly passed away from their injuries, with another victim passing in 1999 of related causes. One survivor, despite being critically wounded, managed to call 911 and provide the authorities with initial information, demonstrating remarkable bravery. This call quickly brought police and emergency services to the scene, but the perpetrators had already vanished. The Las Cruces Police Department, along with multiple other law enforcement agencies, launched a comprehensive investigation. They conducted interviews, collected physical evidence, and released composite sketches of the suspects based on descriptions provided by the survivors. Despite these efforts, the case grew cold, with leads and suspects emerging over the years, but none leading to a conviction or closure of the case. Over the years, the case has seen periodic renewals of public interest and law enforcement efforts. Advances in forensic technology, along with the potential for new witnesses to come forward, have kept hope alive that resolution is possible. The families of the victims and the community continue to seek justice and answers. As of now, the Las Cruces bowling alley slayings remain an open case. I don't have too much more to add about this case other than that it's heartbreaking, and the lack of any suspects whatsoever for this horrific event is a massive injustice. Hopefully we'll see a resolution to this unsolved mystery in the very near future. The Chicago Tylenol tamperings. The Tylenol tampering case is a pivotal moment in American history, marking a turning point in how consumer products are packaged, and a chilling example of product tampering that led to widespread panic and significant changes in the pharmaceutical industry. In the fall of 1982, a series of sudden and unexplained deaths in the Chicago area set off a nationwide scare that would forever change the way consumer products are viewed and regulated. The common link among the victims was the consumption of extra-strength Tylenol capsules. In total, 7 people died after ingesting capsules that had been laced with a lethal dose of potassium cyanide. The victims ranged in age, and the deaths were initially treated as unconnected by the authorities until investigations revealed the tampered Tylenol as the cause. The manufacturer of Tylenol, Johnson & Johnson, faced an unprecedented crisis. In response, they initiated a massive recall of Tylenol products from shelves across the United States, pulling approximately 31 million bottles of Tylenol and offering free replacements in tablet form to anyone who had purchased capsules. This move is estimated to have cost the company over $100 million. The investigation into the Tylenol murders was extensive, involving local police, the FBI, and the Food and Drug Administration. Despite deploying significant resources, law enforcement was unable to apprehend the individual or individuals responsible for the tampering. Various leads were pursued, including the examination of disgruntled employees, but no conclusive evidence was found linking any suspects to the crime. As an aside, James Lewis became a notable figure in the investigation after sending a letter to Johnson & Johnson demanding $1 million to stop the cyanide-induced killings. Although Lewis was arrested for extortion and served time in prison, there was no evidence to suggest he was directly involved in the tampering. Lewis lived in New York City at all material times, was not in Chicago whatsoever, and is theorized to have been an opportunistic vulture pecking apart the fabric of trust that holds society together. Despite the passage of time, the Tylenol murders case remains officially unsolved, with no convictions for the actual tampering. The FBI reopened the investigation in 2009, seeking new leads and conducting additional interviews, but no charges have been brought forward. Charles Morgan. The death of Charles Morgan, a Tucson-based escrow agent, involves highly suspect circumstances. Morgan's story begins on March 22, 1977, when he disappeared from his home in Tucson, Arizona, only to reappear 3 days later in a state that sparked widespread speculation and concern. Upon his return, Morgan was in a distressed condition unable to speak and wearing handcuffs. He communicated to his wife, Ruth, through written notes, explaining that he had been kidnapped and subjected to a traumatic ordeal that involved being physically harmed to prevent him from speaking. He indicated that his vocal cords had been temporarily damaged by a drug that was administered to him during his captivity. Morgan also insisted that his family was in danger and that they should not contact the police under any circumstances, suggesting the involvement of a powerful criminal organization. For the next 2 months, Morgan lived under a self-imposed state of high alert. He took to wearing a bulletproof vest, carried a weapon for self-defense, and drove his daughters to and from school. Despite these precautions, Morgan vanished again on June 7, 1977. However, and unfortunately this time, he would not return home alive. His body was discovered on June 18th in the desert near Tucson. The circumstances of his death were peculiar and troubling. He had been shot once in the back of the head with his own .357 Magnum, which was found near his body. Despite the scene initially suggesting a case of ending by his own hand, several aspects of the case suggested foul play. Morgan was wearing his bulletproof vest at the time of his death, an unusual choice if he had planned to end himself. Also, and I can't get into too much detail on YouTube, but the location of the gunshot wound and the positioning of the body raised doubts about the possibility of a consensual shot. Additionally, a pair of sunglasses not belonging to Morgan was found at the scene, and a $2 bill was discovered inside his underwear. This bill was marked with 7 Spanish names and a Bible verse. The meaning of this was never decoded. In the days following the second disappearance, further revelations added layers of complexity to the case. Ruth Morgan, his widow, received a phone call from an anonymous woman claiming that Charles was alive and in hiding, but this claim never materialized into any concrete evidence of his survival. The investigation into Morgan's death uncovered his secret life, which included allegations of money laundering, connections with organized crime, and covert work for the federal government. Morgan had allegedly confided in his attorney about receiving death threats related to his work, which involved large-scale financial transactions for unknown clients, possibly as part of a money laundering operation for the mob. The official investigation concluded with the ruling of Morgan's death was by his own hand, a conclusion that many, including his family and private investigators, found hard to accept given the circumstances. The cryptic clues he left behind, his apparent fear for his life, and his secretive activities suggested a more sinister explanation. But wait, there's more to this one. A journalist named Don Devereaux was investigating the case and uncovered evidence on illicit gold and platinum transactions. After Devereaux appeared on Unsolved Mysteries to discuss this case, Doug Johnston, an individual who drove a near-identical car and bore a strong resemblance to Devereaux, and worked across the street from Devereaux, was slain. And to tie it back to Danny Casolaro, featured in the first part of this Iceberg series, Casolaro had reached out to Devereaux with information regarding this case, prior to Casolaro's own untimely demise. Okay, very brief intermission to plug my channel. If you've made it this far, hit the like button, the subscribe button, and that notification bell. Further, if you're an absolute Chad or Chadette, join the Patreon and help support my content creation journey. Now let's get back to the iceberg. Doug Johnston. The 1990 slaying of Doug Johnston in Phoenix, Arizona is speculated to be related to the Charles Morgan case. Doug Johnston, a 27-year-old computer draftsman, was found dead in his car outside the electronics firm where he worked. The incident occurred on the night of May 14, 1990, leaving more questions than answers. Johnston was shot in the head, execution style, a brutal and sudden act that seemed to come out of nowhere. He was discovered in the early hours of May 15th, in the driver's seat of his vehicle, with a single gunshot wound. There were no witnesses to the crime, and the weapon was never found. The lack of evidence, motive, and suspects made this case particularly challenging for investigators. Initially, the police explored the possibility of a personal motive, examining Johnston's background, relationships, and interactions. However, they found no evidence of conflicts, threats, or reasons why anyone would target him. Johnston was described by friends and family as a quiet, hard-working individual with no known enemies, making the motive for his murder even more perplexing. As discussed in the previous entry, there is significant speculation that Don Devereaux was the intended target of this hit. Devereaux advised that his sources, including American and Israeli intelligence operatives, confirmed that the hit was meant for him. I'm going to say that this one will never be solved. This appears to be a very sad case of mistaken identity. The Yogi SE Case. The Yogi SE Case revolves around the mysterious death of a German food engineer named Günther Stoll, which remains unsolved since 1984. Stoll was known to have suffered from paranoia, frequently mentioning they were after him, though he never specified who they were. On the evening of October 25th, 1984, he suddenly shouted, "Now I've got it, but you know, auf Deutsch," before scribbling the letters YOGTZE on a piece of paper. After writing the note, Stoll left his house and drove away in his Volkswagen Golf. A few hours later, he appeared in his favorite pub in Wilnsdorf, visibly agitated, and ordered a beer, which he spilled before suddenly leaving. His next known location was an accident scene on the Autobahn 45, where two truck drivers discovered his crashed vehicle in a trench near Heigerseelbach. Notably, Stoll was naked and seriously injured inside the car, having suffered from injuries consistent with being run over by a car. Before he died, he mentioned 4 men who were allegedly with him in the car, insisting he had not been alone, yet he stated that these men were not responsible for his injuries. Earlier that night, Stoll was seen at a house in Heigerseelbach, where he inexplicably undressed and got injured in a fall, leading to initial wounds. This incident adds a layer of complexity to the case, suggesting that Stoll's activities between leaving the pub and the accident were erratic and unexplained. The timeline of Stoll's movements and actions from leaving his home to his death raises numerous questions about his mental state, the meaning of Yogi SE, and what exactly happened to him that night. Investigators were puzzled by the sequence of events leading to Stoll's death. The Autobahn accident scene, combined with the earlier home incident in Heigerseelbach, depicted a scenario where Stoll encountered various situations that contributed to his injuries and eventual death. The presence of external injuries suggested that Stoll had been run over by a car, yet the circumstances under which these injuries occurred, whether before or after the car accident, remained unclear. The mysterious circumstances surrounding the case, including the enigmatic note with Yogi SE, Stoll's unexplained behavior, and the lack of witnesses or clear evidence, have led to widespread speculation. Theories range from involvement in a conspiracy, being a victim of a random violent act, to suffering from a psychological break that led to his erratic behavior and subsequent death. However, despite extensive investigations, the case remains unsolved, with the true meaning of Yogi SE and the sequence of events leading to Stoll's death still shrouded in mystery. The Yogi SE case has become a focal point for discussions on unsolved mysteries, capturing the interest of both the public and investigators due to the bizarre and unexplained elements surrounding Stoll's death. The case remains open at present. Personally, my thoughts are that this was a guy who didn't get the help he needed during a mental health episode, and unfortunately paid with his life. I suspect his unusual behavior could have upset the wrong people, who ended him. Anyway, I just don't see any evidence of an overarching conspiracy theory. And without the enigmatic note, I suspect this case would never have become as well known as it has. Lars Mittank. In July 2014, Lars Mittank, a 28-year-old German national, vanished in Varna, Bulgaria, under circumstances so bizarre and mystifying that the story quickly transcended borders, captivating a global audience. Lars's journey began as an ordinary vacation with friends in the Bulgarian resort of Golden Sands. What was supposed to be a leisurely break took a dramatic turn when Lars was involved in a fight, resulting in an ear injury. Doctors diagnosed him with a ruptured eardrum and advised against flying due to the risk of potential health complications. Consequently, while his friends returned to Germany as planned, Lars stayed behind in Bulgaria to recover. He checked into a cheap hotel near the Varna airport, recommended by the medical staff, planning to return home once it was safe to fly. This decision marked the beginning of a series of events that would lead to his mysterious disappearance. The last known footage of Lars shows him at the Varna airport, exhibiting erratic behavior that starkly contrasted with his known personality. On July 8, 2014, Lars visited the airport's medical center to seek clearance for his flight back to Germany. However, after a brief interaction with the doctor, something triggered Lars to suddenly flee the facility. The CCTV footage captured Lars sprinting out of the airport, leaving behind his belongings, including his passport, wallet, and cell phone. He ran across the airport parking lot, climbed over a fence, and disappeared into the surrounding woods, never to be seen again. The footage of Lars's final known moments has been dissected by internet sleuths, law enforcement, and professional investigators, yet no one has been able to provide a satisfactory explanation for his sudden panic and subsequent disappearance. Several theories have emerged, ranging from mental health issues, possibly exacerbated by his injury and medication, to fears of being pursued, either due to the altercation during his vacation or another unknown reason. The case is particularly challenging due to the lack of concrete evidence or leads. The area surrounding Varna Airport was searched, but no sign of Lars was ever discovered. Interviews with acquaintances, airport staff, and medical personnel provided no insight into Lars's state of mind or his plans after leaving the airport. Rango script. The Rango script of Easter Island represents one of the most interesting unresolved mysteries in the study of ancient writing systems. Unlike anything else found in the region, the script's origins, meanings, and purposes remain largely speculative, with no consensus on its decipherment. Easter Island, also known as Rapa Nui, and extremely famous for its monumental statues called moai, was home to a unique and isolated Polynesian culture. The Rango script was reportedly discovered in the 19th century, although the exact date and circumstances of its discovery are subjects of debate. The script consists of hundreds of glyphs, which include anthropomorphic figures, animals, geometric shapes, and seemingly abstract symbols. These glyphs are carved on various objects, most notably on wooden tablets that have been preserved despite the island's humid climate and the passage of time. The first recorded mention of Rango came from Catholic missionaries in the 1860s, who noted that the islanders attributed great importance to the inscriptions. However, by that time, the knowledge of reading the script had been lost, possibly due to the devastating impact of raids and introduced diseases in the 19th century. These activities unfortunately decimated the island's population and disrupted its cultural traditions. The purpose of the Rango script has been the subject of much speculation. Some scholars suggest that it was used for ceremonial or religious purposes, possibly recording myths, genealogies, or rituals. Others propose that it might have served a practical function, such as accounting or recording historical events. The absence of any known Rango readers and the lack of direct historical accounts make these theories difficult to verify. Efforts to decipher the script have faced significant challenges. Unlike other ancient scripts that have been deciphered with the help of a bilingual text, such as the Rosetta Stone for Egyptian hieroglyphs, no such aid exists for Rongorongo. The script's isolation, both geographically and culturally, from other writing systems complicates matters further, as there are no known linguistic relatives that could provide clues to its meaning. Several attempts at decipherment have been made, but none have gained widespread acceptance among scholars. The mystery of Rongorongo is compounded by the fate of the tablets themselves. Only a few dozen tablets have been preserved, many of which are scattered in museums and private collections around the world. The scarcity of these artifacts limits the available data for analysis and makes the task of decipherment even more daunting. Furthermore, the condition of some tablets, eroded by time and environmental factors, adds another layer of difficulty to interpreting the glyphs. The Rongorongo script of Easter Island remains one of the few entirely undeciphered writing systems in the world. The disappearance of Richie Edwards. Richie Edwards, a member of the Welsh rock band Manic Street Preachers, vanished on February 1st, 1995, leaving behind a perplexing, unsolved mystery. His disappearance came at a time when the band was gaining significant traction in the music world. On the day he disappeared, Edwards was due to fly to the United States for a promotional tour with his bandmate James Bradfield. However, Edwards never showed up for the flight. In the preceding days, he had withdrawn significant sums of money from his bank account. This detail led to speculation about his intentions, though what he planned to do with the money remains unknown. Edwards was last seen at the Embassy Hotel in London. From there, his movements become a matter of conjecture. His car was later found abandoned near the Severn Bridge, a known location for endings, which further fueled speculation about his fate. Inside the vehicle, authorities found evidence that suggested Edwards had been living in it for a few days, including a box of cereal and photographs to be developed. Despite extensive searches, no conclusive evidence has been found to determine Edwards' fate. The Severn Bridge's association with endings led many to believe Edwards ended himself, yet his body was never recovered. This absence of physical evidence has spurred numerous theories about what happened, including that he may have simply started new elsewhere. Edwards' family and fans have pointed out various reasons to doubt the self-ending theory, including the fact that there were numerous alleged sightings of him around the world after. It remains unclear why he withdrew large sums of cash before his disappearance, and this theoretically could have been used as seed funding for a new life abroad. El Dorado, the lost city of gold. El Dorado is a term that instantly conjures images of gold, wealth, and an ancient jungle city. El Dorado has been a significant part of South American folklore and a tantalizing target for explorers and treasure hunters for centuries. Originating from early Spanish explorations in the 16th century, El Dorado has evolved from a man, to a city, to an empire believed to be laden with gold and precious stones. The term El Dorado translates to the Golden One in Spanish, initially referring to the leader of the Muisca people, an indigenous group in the highlands of modern-day Colombia. According to accounts, the Muisca chief would cover himself in gold dust during religious ceremonies and then dive into Lake Guatavita, washing off the gold in the waters. This ritual, aimed at appeasing a god, caught the Spanish conquistadors' attention, fueling rumors of a city of immense wealth somewhere in the uncharted territories of South America. As the story of El Dorado spread, it ignited a frenzied search among explorers. The legend morphed over time, with El Dorado no longer representing a person but a city or a kingdom believed to be overflowing with gold. This quest for El Dorado led numerous expeditions into the heart of the continent, with explorers traversing through dense jungles, vast rivers, and treacherous mountains, facing numerous hardships, including hostile encounters with indigenous peoples, diseases, and often death. Among the most famous searchers for El Dorado was Sir Walter Raleigh, the English explorer who undertook two expeditions in the late 16th and early 17th centuries to find the city. Raleigh's expeditions, like many others, ended in failure, but his detailed accounts of the journey fueled further interest in El Dorado and the riches it promised. Another famous search was undertaken by Gonzalo Pizarro, the younger sibling of Francisco Pizarro. Also, quick aside, if your brother conquered a literal empire of gold in the form of the Incans, that's got to make your quest for the jungle equivalent seem more rational. Despite numerous expeditions and the advancements in geographical knowledge of South America, El Dorado remained elusive, with no concrete evidence of its existence ever found. The legend persisted into the 18th century, but as time passed and no tangible proof emerged, the search for El Dorado waned, and the legend gradually transitioned from a potential reality to a myth. Interestingly, though, in recent years, new techniques have been able to uncover structures of ancient civilizations in the Amazon, suggesting that perhaps El Dorado may have some more truth to it than one would think. I wouldn't be surprised if new findings out of the Amazon inspire, at the very least, a television show where explorers go on a modern El Dorado hunt with modern equipment and techniques. Also, if you grew up at any point during the last 2 decades or so, you know that the real treasure of this legend is Chell, the Hanjo Masamune. The Hanjo Masamune represents not just a priceless piece of Japanese cultural heritage, but also one of the most intriguing mysteries of occupation-era Japan. Crafted by the legendary swordsmith Masamune in the late 13th or early 14th century, this sword is considered a masterpiece among Japanese swords, or Nihonto. Masamune's works are celebrated for their beauty, quality, and the superior craftsmanship that marks them as unparalleled artifacts. And yes, if you've ever played a JRPG or watched an anime, you've probably heard this name ascribed to a sword in whatever game or anime that was. The Hanjo Masamune, named after a general who once owned it, carries not only the legacy of its creator, but also the history of Japan itself, making its disappearance a significant loss to both cultural heritage and historical scholarship. The tale of the Hanjo Masamune mirrors the tumultuous periods of Japanese history, having been passed down through generations of warriors, samurai, and collectors. The sword's last known owner before its disappearance was Tokugawa Ieyasu, the hereditary head of the Tokugawa family, who governed Japan during the Edo period. Ieyasu surrendered it to a police station in Majiro, Tokyo, in December 1945, following the Allied directive to confiscate all weapons in Japan after World War II, including Nihonto. The Allied forces collected thousands of swords, many of historical and cultural significance, as part of the disarmament process. The Hanjo Masamune, along with other surrendered swords, was presumably intended for destruction or repurposing, a fate that presumably befell countless historical artifacts in the aftermath of the war. However, the exact sequence of events following its surrender is where the trail goes cold. The Japanese police claim they handed the sword over to Sergeant Coldy Bymore, but from there, its whereabouts become a matter of speculation and mystery, as the U.S. occupation forces didn't receive it. Also, yes, you heard me correct, the American serviceman was allegedly named Coldy Bymore. Unsurprisingly, someone by that name has never been discovered. I would hypothesize that the false name given may have been something more legitimately American, perhaps Cody Biltmore. The disappearance of the Hanjo Masamune has sparked numerous theories and leads over the decades. Some suggest it may have been taken to the United States, either as a war trophy or in an official capacity, only to be lost, sold, or hidden away. Others believe it might still be in Japan, unrecognized or kept secret by a private collector. Efforts to locate the Hanjo Masamune have been complicated by a few factors. The chaotic post-war period saw the displacement and destruction of many records, making it difficult to track the movement of surrendered items. Also, the sword's immense cultural value and the prestige associated with Masamune's works mean that the sword would be, to put it mildly, of extreme value, meaning a collector is unlikely to simply volunteer it. Personally, I imagine that this sword is sitting on a mantelpiece in Bismarck, North Dakota, its present owners completely unaware that they possess one of the rarest and most sought-after swords ever crafted. Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid. Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid are names that resonate through American history, pop culture, and Old West folklore. Butch Cassidy, born Robert Leroy Parker in 1866 in Beaver, Utah, grew up in a large Mormon family. Influenced by the rugged surroundings and the tales of outlaws, he embarked on a life of crime, starting with minor thefts and eventually escalating to bank and train robberies. His charisma, intelligence, and aversion to violence, preferring to use wit and strategy over brute force, distinguished him from other outlaws of his time and helped his image as a gentlemanly bandit. The Sundance Kid, whose real name was Harry Alonzo Longabaugh, was born in 1867 in Montclair, Pennsylvania. He earned his nickname after serving time for horse theft in Sundance, Wyoming. Known for his sharpshooting skills, Longabaugh crossed paths with Cassidy, and the two, along with a rotating group of troublemakers known as the Wild Bunch, embarked on a series of high-profile robberies across the United States. The Wild Bunch was notorious for their audacious heists, which included robbing banks, trains, and paying off law enforcement to turn a blind eye to their escapades. They were pioneers in the use of dynamite for safe cracking and became famed for their Robin Hood image, often sharing their loot with the poor. This, combined with their efforts to avoid violence, helped cultivate a somewhat romantic image of the gang among the public. Despite their efforts to remain nonviolent, the gang was constantly pursued by lawmen and the Pinkerton Detective Agency. The relentless pursuit forced Cassidy and the Sundance Kid to seek refuge outside the United States. In 1901, they, along with Sundance's companion, Etta Place, fled to Argentina, where they attempted to live under assumed names and start anew as ranchers. However, the lure of easy money proved too strong to resist, and they soon reverted to their old ways, robbing banks and trains in South America. Their activities eventually drew the attention of local authorities, and in 1908, it is widely believed that Cassidy and the Sundance Kid met their end in Bolivia. According to the most accepted account, after robbing a payroll delivery courier, they were surrounded by soldiers in the small town of San Vicente. Refusing to be captured, the pair allegedly engaged in a shootout, during which they were fatally wounded. However, there is no conclusive evidence they met their end in Bolivia, and both men are claimed to have been sighted back in the United States. I'm going to hazard to guess that it may not have been any great feat for wealthy, charismatic bandits to grease a few palms and have themselves declared dead in early 20th century Bolivia. The disappearance of Etta Place. The disappearance of Etta Place, the Sundance Kid's longtime partner, remains shrouded in mystery and speculation. Etta Place's origins are as mysterious as her disappearance. Historical records provide little evidence of her early life, including her real name, which remains a subject of debate. It is believed that Etta Place was an alias. She has been variously identified in historical documents, but none conclusively reveal her true identity. She emerged into the public eye in the late 1890s. primarily through her association with Harry Longabaugh, the Sundance Kid. Described as strikingly beautiful, intelligent, and well-mannered, Etta was unlike the typical female companions of outlaws of the time. She was reportedly well-educated and possessed horse riding and shooting skills that allowed her to move comfortably within the outlaw circles and the rugged terrains they frequented. The most well-documented period of Etta's life was her time in South America with Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid. Etta's presence in South America is well documented through photographs and various historical accounts, which depict her as an integral part of the trio's life on the run. In 1909, after the Sundance Kid's supposed death, she vanished from historical records, leaving behind a trail of speculation and unanswered questions. There are several theories about Etta's disappearance. One theory suggests that she grew weary of the outlaw lifestyle to return to the United States. Another posits that she remained in South America, possibly after Sundance and Cassidy were allegedly killed in Bolivia, and either married or lived out her days in anonymity. A third theory suggests that she met an untimely death, either through illness or at the hands of enemies, although there is no concrete evidence to support this claim. Unlike Cassidy and Sundance, whose deaths, while still hotly debated, are documented through contemporary accounts and believed by many to have occurred in Bolivia, Etta left no such trail. There are numerous candidates for her actual identity. However, none of them seem to match up in any meaningful way. The Lost Dutchmans Gold Mine. The Lost Dutchmans Gold Mine is a legendary treasure said to be hidden in the Superstition Mountains of Arizona. Despite numerous expeditions, the mine remains an enduring mystery. The story centers on Jacob Waltz, a German immigrant often referred to as the Dutchman. Waltz reportedly discovered a rich gold mine in the Superstition Mountains in the late 1800s, but took the secret of its location to his grave in 1891. Unlike many such legendary tales, Jacob Waltz was a historical person who immigrated to the United States in 1848, presumably in the wake of the ongoing revolutions in Europe. There is evidence to suggest that Jacob Waltz did have a large quantity of gold, though whether his wealth was derived from this supposed gold mine is ultimately unknown. Before his death, Waltz is said to have shared cryptic clues about the mine's whereabouts with a few acquaintances, setting the stage for a mystery that has captivated the imagination of many. The legend of the Lost Dutchman's Mine is not just a tale of hidden treasure. It's interwoven with the history and folklore of the American Southwest. The Superstition Mountains themselves are named for the Native American beliefs that held the area to be sacred and cursed, adding a layer of supernatural intrigue to the story of the mine. Over the years, the legend has been embellished with tales of Apache guardians, Spanish conquistadors, and cursed gold, making the distinction between fact and fiction increasingly blurred. Some accounts suggest that it's less a gold mine and more of a mountain storage area used by conquistadors to hide plundered gold. Many have tried to locate the Lost Dutchman's Mine, using Waltz's supposed clues and maps that have surfaced over the years. These maps, often contradictory and confusing, have led countless treasure hunters into the Superstition Mountains. The area's treacherous terrain, with its steep cliffs and extreme temperatures, have claimed the lives of several individuals, fueling rumors that the mine is cursed. The terrain has claimed numerous searchers, with the latest unfortunate losses coming in 2010. My theory on this one is that Jacob Waltz may have simply enjoyed telling tall tales about a gold mine, and given that he was independently wealthy, this story developed into the present tale, which is more legend than fact. That said, I can say with near certainty that there are definitely lost gold mines in the American Southwest. Further, it seems that there are almost certainly quote-unquote storage facilities used by conquistadors which were lost over the centuries. Anyway, quick footnote on this one. The myth has become so prevalent that Superstition Mountains are now part of the lost Dutchmans State Park. The death of Władysław Sikorski. The death of Władysław Sikorski, the Prime Minister of the Polish government in exile and Commander-in-Chief of the Polish Armed Forces during World War II, remains shrouded in mystery. Sikorski's untimely demise on July 4, 1943, in a plane crash just after takeoff from Gibraltar, has fueled speculation, conspiracy theories, and extensive investigations for decades. At the time of his death, Sikorski was a central figure in Polish politics and military strategy. He had led the Polish government in exile based in London since 1940, following Poland's occupation by Germany and the Soviet Union. Sikorski was instrumental in organizing Polish military forces in the West, and was a key advocate for Poland's interests on the international stage. His leadership was marked by efforts to secure Poland's post-war sovereignty and the investigation of the Katyn massacre, where thousands of Polish officers were ended by the Soviets in 1940. His refusal to accept the Soviet explanation for what happened at Katyn is key to this mystery. By way of backstory, the Soviets claimed that the Nazis committed this heinous act, despite having committed the massacre themselves. The plane crash that claimed Sikorski's life occurred shortly after midnight, when the Liberator II aircraft he was traveling in plunged into the sea moments after taking off from Gibraltar. Sikorski was returning from an inspection tour of Polish forces in the Middle East and a diplomatic mission in the Soviet Union. The only survivor of the crash was the pilot, Edward Perchal, leading to immediate speculation about the cause of the incident. The official British investigation into the crash concluded that it was likely caused by the aircraft's controls being jammed by a baggage overload, leading to a loss of control immediately after takeoff. However, this explanation did not satisfy many, and alternative theories quickly emerged. These theories ranged from sabotage and assassination to more complex scenarios involving the political tensions of the time. At the heart of the speculation surrounding Sikorski's death were the strained relations between the Polish government in exile and its allies, particularly the Soviet Union. Sikorski had been a vocal critic of the Soviets, especially regarding the Katyn massacre and the fate of Polish territories under Soviet control. His efforts to maintain Polish independence and sovereignty were seen as an obstacle to Soviet plans for post-war Eastern Europe, leading some to speculate that the Soviet Union had a motive for eliminating Sikorski. Other theories have implicated the British government, suggesting that Sikorski's death was convenient for the Allies, who were seeking to strengthen their relationship with the Soviet Union as a strategic partner against Nazi Germany. According to this line of thought, Sikorski's removal would ease tensions between the Allies and the Soviets, making him a casualty of wartime diplomacy. Despite the various theories, no concrete evidence has definitively proven foul play. Subsequent investigations and examinations of the crash, including a Polish exhumation of Sikorski's body in 1993, have failed to uncover new evidence that conclusively supports any of the assassination theories. Given that Sikorski was driving a wedge between the Western Allies and the Soviets during a crucial period in the war, it is easy to find motive for the Allies or the Soviets to have taken action against him. Sometimes a plane crash is just a plane crash, though that is a much harder pill to swallow when the most brutal Soviet dictator is a potential suspect. The Soviets admitted to the Katyn massacre in 1989, which was the wholesale elimination of over 20,000 Polish officers and intellectuals. Further, the Soviets admitted to numerous other serious war crimes in the 1980s, yet did not admit to this slaying. These facts suggest that the Soviets perhaps should be ruled out. Further, it was quite obvious by this point that Poland would not be returned to its pre-war independent state, especially considering one of the co-belligerents against Poland was now an ally. However, that said, personally, I don't think the British would have done it, as they relied extensively on Polish exiles to bolster their forces. Had such a conspiracy ever been proven, this would have seriously compromised Britain's warfighting ability. In the end, sometimes a plane crash is just a plane crash, though I do not think we will ever have a complete definitive answer. Polybius, the arcade mystery. Polybius is a potential arcade game, alleged to have appeared briefly in the early 1980s in the suburbs of Portland, Oregon. The mystery of Polybius is a blend of conspiracy, technology, and psychology, woven into a narrative that remains quote-unquote unresolved to this day. According to the legend, Polybius appeared in a handful of arcades in 1981, only to vanish without a trace weeks later. Reports claim the game was incredibly popular, with players experiencing intense addiction, followed by adverse effects such as nausea, headaches, amnesia, nightmares, and, in some cases, the desire to end oneself. It was also said that men in black suits would collect data from the machines, fueling speculation that the game was part of a government-run psychological experiment. The origins of the Polybius myth are difficult to pinpoint. However, the earliest known mention of the game surfaced on the internet in the early 2000s, decades after it supposedly existed. This timing has led many to question the veracity of the claims, suggesting that Polybius might be nothing more than an elaborate hoax or an urban legend. Given the lack of any physical evidence of Polybius, and the lack of any meaningful testimony from people who supposedly played it, and the lack of contemporary reference, I stand in the urban legend camp on Polybius. That's part 3 of the Unsolved Mysteries Iceberg in the bag. If you made it this far, be sure to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell. I'm constantly creating new content for you to enjoy. Also, if you really want to take it to the next level, consider becoming a patron. My Patreon link is in the description. Shout out to my shout out to your patrons Noah Schubert, Kazakh Cutie, and Kurt the Squirt. Anyway, as always, until next time, stay healthy and peace out.